Presented from the Aishin Broadcast Studio at Babcock's Media.
Welcome to the AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, our guest is Anissa Collins from Dealer Teamwork. She is a 2025 AutoSuccess Women at the Wheel honoree. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. Exciting to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. And where'd you come in from today?
From north of Georgia.
Ah,
Yeah, that's home.
nice. Maybe it's a little bit cooler here then.
It is not cooler here. It was cool at home, but it's
Oh,
not
really?
cooler. Yeah, it's
Oh.
not cooler here. You would think it would be, but it's not.
It's
But
not.
that's the weather these days, right?
Yeah. Well, you have quite the career in automotive. Over the last few decades, what are some of the major changes in automotive that you've seen that really benefited dealers?
So, I mean, there's been a lot of changes. I think that's the only constant in automotive is probably the change. I think the one change that's had the largest impact in automotive has to be the consumer. And I think nowadays, it's really the empowered consumer. Think about it. They have more with these digital platforms. I mean, they really have done some extensive research when they step foot on the showroom. And so I think that that's really different. And it's interesting because I still think to some degree the online to offline transfer of that is still a little clunky maybe as a process for the dealers. But I think the ones that are really sort of putting a digital first importance on it are the ones I think that are really succeeding, to be honest.
Nice. Well, and I guess the second part to that question would be, what do you think is most ripe for, for a little bit of change in the industry right now?
There's a lot, I think, that we'll see over the course of the next couple. I think that most people think that the natural answer would be AI, but I really think it's automation, right? And data transparency. I think those are the things that really looking ahead will change over the way we do business over the course of the next couple of years, to where it'll sort of disrupt the traditional selling process is automation.
So when you say automation, what do you see coming, and what additional automation do you see coming that we don't have today?
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of automation. I mean, just directly in our business of digital marketing, I think there'll be a lot of automation where you take some analytics and some metrics and you start combining those with the data and the transparency of all data, and you'll be able to automate campaigns that are most successful in someone's market for their make. It'll be something that's already figured out. And I think the automation will be able to make changes on the fly, which, we live in the now with automotive. And I think that will be one. I think there will be some other ways that automation will play into maybe the customer's journey. I mean, it would be really nice for us to be able to gather data that tells the journey of the consumer and actually are able to market to them and meet them where they're at versus trying to put them in a certain category. And I think automation will play a huge part in that. And that's just a couple examples, but I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of automation I think out there already, but I do think that will be the one, especially taking all the things that we're going to gather from an AI perspective.
Wow. So I mean, you're kind of thinking that we it would automatically look at the results of a campaign as it's running and make decisions to improve the campaign, as opposed to like today, maybe once a week you take a look at the report and then you make a change. This would just automatically happen to maximize your marketing dollar.
Absolutely. And I got to be honest with you, that's not really a luxury of tomorrow. That's actually a table stake today in our platform, as
Really?
It should be. Absolutely.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Well, let's talk about digital marketing, and what are some of the things that dealers have trouble understanding as far as digital marketing goes, and where's the big opportunity to do better?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you asked that, because I think that when it comes to digital marketing, I still see on a day-to-day basis a lot of times dealerships that think of it as a set it and forget it, or even think of it as my vendors handling it, and without really understanding what drives the performance behind it. And you and I had a conversation earlier about this, but I think for dealers, it should be just not about the why, but the what that drives these performance and these metrics. And so I think that's one of the things when it comes to digital advertising that is one of maybe the misconceptions that dealers currently have when it comes to that. And, the most successful clients that we have at Dealer Teamwork are the ones that really think of this as a shared partnership. We understand that we're supposed to be the experts on the dig ad space, and listen, we are, right? But there's a lot of things that go on inside the dealership that we need that shared data immediately. And I think one of the things that also, from the automated standpoint, from the digital marketing standpoint, I think it really has to be tied into your inventory, your digital marketing. It needs to be tied into your inventory on a daily basis, if not in a real-time basis, so that it can make, smart decisions about your inventory and marketing it correctly and effectively, so you don't waste ad spend.
Yeah, so like you don't want to run ads for a car you've got one of or none of.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And it even should be able to go a little bit deeper than that. One of the things that we introduced over the course of the last year was something called precision spending. And like most things that we introduced, it is something that we were trying to solve a problem internally, right? Which was the overspend and the underspend, because both of those are not good with a dealership, right? If you overspend or if you underspend. And so we introduced precision spending as something for us to monitor the campaigns on a daily basis on a car per car basis. But what we found was that after, we started running precision spending on all our clients, we really started learning, there are certain days that you should spend more money and days you should not spend the money because the search intent just isn't there. And so a lot of analytics came in behind that and allowed for precision spending to be something that was a little more revolutionary than we thought it was going to be when we introduced it.
So I just to make it a little more clear to me, like, so precision spending.
Hard to say.
what you're doing effectively is from experience, that maybe we'll just say Tuesdays, the people that you might be marketing to are low intent, but on Thursdays they tend to be high intent and convert into more sales. So it's going to automatically adjust the spend to less on Tuesday and more on Thursday.
Automatically, and you got it. That's exactly what it'll do. Because if the search intent isn't there on a Tuesday, but it triples on a Thursday, where do you want to spend your money as a dealer? You want to make sure that you're spending it on the day that has the search intent out there.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you have if you have a budget, you certainly don't want to burn it when people
it's
aren't.
wasted spend for sure.
Yeah, oh, that's wonderful. Well, I want to ask another question about marketing strategy as it pertains to like with speed to market, and like how can dealers adjust their marketing strategy, considering speed to market and consumer behaviors, inventory issues. I know that's a big ball of a question, but if you could maybe speak to me a little bit about that.
It's funny that you talk about speed to market. Speed to market has always been, as long as I've been in automotive, speed to market has been something that we have consistently strived for from a dealership perspective. I also think it's really interesting how many processes are still in the dealership today that sort of get in the way of that speed to market, because from a dealership perspective, if you have a vehicle, whether it's a trade-in or a new car that's frontline ready, you want to be marketing to it right away. I can remember years ago where it was like, we want to make sure that we have this vehicle on the website as soon as it gets to the lot, if it's frontline ready, so that we can sell it, so we can take advantage of the 30-day 60-day turn, whatever that is. And speed to market still is very, very crucial. But again, I feel like from a digital marketing standpoint, you have to have someone who's tied in and digesting inventory on a minute by minute basis, and all the changes too, because again, we talked about that consumer and how much more research they do, and how more educated I feel like they are in their buying process. And so it's really important to have as much of it updated as you possibly can. So, incentives, availability, all of that needs to be something that's done in real time. Because in all fairness, I think the consumers today, the comparison consumers are the ones that are going to really act quickly and go into market. Those comparison shoppers from way back when, I think those are the ones that today are in market shoppers, and they want to convert quickly. And if you don't have, the latest information out there when it comes to your inventory, I don't think they're going to be able to convert.
Well, now, I've heard you say that your technology, your patented dealer teamwork technology, is a game changer to the marketplace. Let's talk about that.
Well, I think the one thing that was the game changer, and I want to step back just a second, because everyone asks me all the time, why the patent? Everybody, there's not a lot of technology in automotive that's patent. As you probably know, a lot of this executive team came from Who's Calling and Vin Solutions. And with both of those, we were doing something at that time that was revolutionary, right? But as soon as we got it out to market and spent all the money and the time and the effort, there were people that came out and duplicated it and started doing. I can remember when we introduced Vin Solutions and we had everything all in one, immediately every standalone CRM company became an inventory management, became a website company, and really Sean just had the forethought this time when we were, starting to build this platform, was like, let's put a patent on it so we don't spend any time looking behind us to see who's catching up, and we can constantly build. And, that's another thing I think that's really important is, even though we put a patent on it so we didn't have to look back, we wanted to build in-house. And that's really important in automotive these days. I know you and I were having a little bit of a conversation about this before. A lot of the marketing companies, the agencies, they utilize the same tech stack. And listen, if everybody's using the same tech stack, who has the advantage, right?
Yeah, nobody.
And so, nobody. Yeah. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were able to build within our own house, to be able to make sure that we were capitalizing on all the changes. I mean, listen, the one thing about Google is, just like automotive, it's constantly changing, right? And that's one thing that we wanted to be able to reinvest back in ourselves and our platform. So that's why we have that patent on it. And we think it's very important to build our own technology and not, sublet that, so to speak, out to anyone else, is because that allows us to be agile and to continue to be the leader in digital marketing and advertising for automotive, for OEMs and dealers. I think what it really solves for dealers is taking their one largest commodity and, making sure that it's advertised correctly, accurately. I mean, people can't convert if you don't have something available, if it's not accurate, if the price changes. I mean, there's so many moving parts to advertising and running campaigns on inventory that you have to have that automation and platform that can keep up with it.
Well, let's talk about, inefficiencies and waste. I mean, that's a big problem in all marketing.
Absolutely.
How do you help dealers, either reduce or eliminate, the inefficiencies and the waste that have always been kind of a part of marketing?
So that's probably one of my favorite questions that you're going to ask. And I think because it just talks about, I can hear our CEO, Sean Stapleton, and they say in lean times, every dollar counts. And, Sean always says every dollar counts all the time. And it really does. And we have to eliminate waste too. And I think one of the ways that dealer teamwork does that really well for dealers is obviously making sure that we're marketing the vehicle across all platforms seamlessly, because that's really important. But I think the way that we have, just in the last probably couple of years, really focused on that is something that we call total search. And for us, total search is SEM and SEO working together. And that's really exciting. Most of the times you think that SEO is a marathon and not a sprint. Sometimes we sort of make it look like a sprint. SEO, for me, in as many years that I've been in the business, it's always been, something that people have thought that the website company would provide. And some website companies do a good job at that, actually. But, there's always a better chance to do SEO. But really where we work on eliminating waste is working together. Think about it like this. You and I you're the paid media, you do search, and I do SEO. And we work together on a campaign for a dealership. And you've got a $5,000 budget and they're heavy in F-150s, right? So what are you gonna do? You're gonna help try to move the F-150s, right? And how are you gonna do that? You're gonna do it with the paid search. But if SEO has already organically top ranked for the search terms for F-150s, lease an F-150, buy an F-150, F-150s for sale, and they're gonna be lowest APRs, all of those top search ranked terms are already being led you to the top as a dealer organically, then I can say to you, guess what, Brian, you don't have to spend the money on the F-150s. Organically, we're already coming up first in all the searches. We already have page rank authority over all of that. So you can actually take that money as a net savings, or you could add it to some other piece of the campaign and focus on something different, another business objective that the dealer has. And that really, truly, total search working together really eliminates the waste.
Boy, I mean, that almost, without your answer, that almost sounds counterintuitive. Like, I have a whole bunch of F-150s. I got to sell these F-150s. I'm going to spend the money on the F-150s. But, I wouldn't have thought that, if I'm already dominating on the F-150, I don't need to spend the money. On the F-150, I would be wasting the money.
And a lot of times, in all fairness, a lot of people have their SEO done with one person and their paid search done with another. And we know how that works. At the end of 30 days, you're going to get a report that tells you how things sort of evened out, like what was organically at the top, right, dominating. And that's really too late to affect the paid search for that month, right? It's going to go into the next month, and it's not really relevant in real time. And so that's what's really great about having all of that in one house, so to speak.
Wow. So I guess the benefit is instead of figuring it out 30 days later after the $5,000 is already spent.
Sure.
You can figure it out in real time.
Absolutely.
And adjust it and either, find another car you need to sell or save the money for another day.
Yeah, it could be a net savings to the dealer. It could be we tell dealers all the time, if SEO is done effectively and consistently the right way, then it should offset the cost of your paid search. I mean, that's how it's designed. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times, dealers just check the box maybe on the SEO and don't really understand it. And, I always say we've been doing this long enough, digital advertising and automotive, that somebody should have figured out for your market, for your make and your model, what campaigns you should be running to move the inventory. And that really comes down to the analytics piece of Dealer Teamwork's platform that allows us to already know that. So we have a shorthand, and then we have the automation that talks back and forth. So obviously it's not me and you talking about it, but it's something that's done with inside the platform, and then just gives notification to our managers that manage the accounts.
Wow. So, I mean, it really sounds like, when you work with a dealer that, you definitely want them to understand what's happening, but it's not something they have to think about every day. Like it's kind of, you're able to set it up for them, have a plan. The plan is going to run and the plan is going to optimize itself, and you kind of have everybody.
And they just need to share the nuances in between, like the new incentives that come out from the OEMs if we don't already have that. Oh. New compliance rules that come, things that are going on inside their own dealership. They may have initiatives with inside their own dealerships. I can think of so many different scenarios that are coming to my mind right now, but they may have gotten a lot of a certain type of vehicle, and those are selling really good in their market. And this is something that's truly not been in the inventory feed or on their lot before, and they really want to focus on that. And I think that's another really great thing about the landing pages that we provide. Not only do they have SEO rich content, so that they can be served up in search intent, but the landing pages really, when someone does a search, their search intent, whatever it is they click on when they go to it, if it's not something that continues answering the questions that they want to, because believe it or not, they're in a buying process of some kind, right? And I remember when the buying process used to be like something we had on the wall inside the dealership, where it's like meet, greet, put in a seat, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And really the buying process starts way before that. And so when they do the search intent and it lands on the landing page that still covers everything on search intent and then answers the next set of questions that they're going to have in the buying process, it really gives them something to say yes to. And that's really what we want from a consumer perspective.
You had brought it up earlier about new incentives or new initiatives, or maybe a vehicle you don't
You'd be surprised how hard that is still to get the correct incentives out in a timely manner.
That was my question. I was going to ask.
I stole it from you, didn't I?
I was going to ask you, how does that communication take place? What's the process for that?
So it's really done instantaneously. Most of the OEMs, if not all of them, we get the rebates incentives where they're national and they're regional and they're up to date in minutes on their inventory. A lot of times the MPOP, our platform, has already changed the incentives to the most recent incentives before the dealer ever even knows that we've done it. And that's really something that as we go out from an executive level, we go out and we have these conversations with these OEMs. That's one of their biggest pain points still to this day, is getting the rebates and incentives across all these website platforms instantaneously and in a timely manner. I mean, if it's, again, speed to market, if it's 13 days or 5 days or even 3 days, 3 days is a lot when it comes to the speed to market and the inventory turn. So yeah, it's one of the things that I think, we have a lot of conversations, high-level conversations with people in the industry about, can you guys do this across every website platform? And we do. We integrate with all of them. So the answer is usually yes. And, I think that's why we're really attractive to large dealer groups as well, because that can be a challenge for them as well, is getting specials pages up, every month, getting the specials pages already landed there without having to call around every dealership and be like, what's your specials this month? Right? They're already up and out there. And that's really the proactive approach, if I have to be honest, of our account managers to make sure that we have that.
Well, the incentive thing is incredible. You and I were talking earlier. It's been a while since either one of us was employed by a dealership, but you remember the days, here's the updated incentives.
Oh,
like,
I know.
Let me go to the Xerox machine. Yeah.
Apply those.
Yeah. And then the sales manager would be up there figuring out all of his leases and all his.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And listen, like I said, that shouldn't be a luxury anymore. Those are table stakes in today's world.
Well, I kind of want to shift gears a little bit and talk about something different.
Okay.
You know, you've been a leader in the industry for a long time, and you've mentored a lot of people, a lot of women. You know, I mentioned that you were this year. Congratulations,
Thank you
Women at
very
the
much.
Wheel honoree. Like, what advice would you give to somebody, male or female, that's just getting into the car business right now?
Wow, I get this question probably most, to believe it or not. And, you know, I think it's one of those things where I am always still continuing to learn. 30 years in the business, you think, you know, that much time in this industry, you've probably learned a lot. And I have, but I never want to stop learning. There's so many new things being introduced to our industry, to our data, to the technology. And I think you have to continue to always learn, you know, really just be a student of the business all the time. I think you have to be very authentic. And you have to obviously have a lot of confidence. I think you shouldn't wait to, you know, ask to be part of a conversation. I think if you can add something valuable, you should. I will say that, you know, someone that respects you a lot and thinks a lot of you and asks you to join these conversations, usually it's done because, you know, you've put the time in, you've put the work in. And I think that, you know, they respect you because of that. And I think you always have to be, you know, I hear a lot of time people say, you know, don't always find your voice. And I'm sure people who know me probably think, well, she's never had a problem finding her voice. But I do think that you have to bring something to the table. And I do think that your work and your ethic will speak for itself. And, you know, I even said it even in the article, you know, you don't always get immediate recognition, but with that work ethic, you will eventually. And
oh, go ahead.
no, it's funny because I always have this saying, like, we're just going to put our head down and do the work. We say that in both my teams. And it's something that I think I've really led by example on.
Well, I have one final question on that topic.
Okay.
You know, I know that you're very proud of somebody that you're mentoring right now, and an opportunity that she has that's really an exciting thing. If you'd like to share it with the audience, please.
I would. It's funny because one of the things that's not funny, I think one of the things we're working towards the most is looking at the next generation and what they have to offer. From a consumer perspective and from a perspective in our organization. And I have quite a few on my team that are new to the auto industry that I've sort of taken under my wing to mentor. And one of them is Olivia Stapleton. She is, this year, she is going to be talking about next generation. You know, we talked about that consumer earlier, you know, and how much more they're educated. It's interesting. We've been doing a lot of research. And, you know, one of the things that we found out is the largest group of in-market shoppers right now is millennials. And one of the things millennials have really drug the rest of us up through is they want personalization, immediacy, and which makes our platform really prime for that. But she is really the one that's leading the charge on researching and finding out about the next generation and really bringing it to automotive. And she will be speaking this year at NADA 2026, which I think is a huge accomplishment for someone who's been in the industry, you know, 5 or 6 years like she has. She's a workhorse. I love her.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a high point to end an interview on. I mean, is there really anything more you'd like to share with the audience today, Anissa?
I don't think so. I just want thank you so much for your time having me here and us talking. I enjoy talking on camera. I enjoy talking off camera. I think we learned a lot about each other and have a lot of things we agree on about the industry. So thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
And thank you for taking the time to join us for this AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today our guest has been Anissa Collins from Dealer Teamwork. We hope to see you again on a future episode. This one's Over the Curb and Burning Gas.